preserve the digital representations of this tapestry itself. Usually they can't do that because they're not the owner, or it would take too much storage and so on. You think that a museum will keep their digital representations of a certain object online. What they create as new research data might be a database of, for example, of this tapestry, all of the actors involved, like for example the artists, the weavers, I don't know the exact terms in English always.
Yeah.
So and that kind, let's say this database, that will be the research data referring to these objects that they used for their research. But these objects itself, the image of this tapestry, doesn't necessarily become part of the data set. No, preferably the museum has a persistent link to the digital representation and the metadata online, and the researcher includes the PID to this object.
I see.
Yeah.
But then the question is, so putting what we call raw data aside, because this is what you say not available, probably the ownership is in the museum. Are you building a metadata catalog? Is that happening? Can someone search for a tapestry of a particular century or whatever?
No, there is, as far as I know, there is no such thing. It are all individual projects and outcomes, and they might have a public, their project platform, but it's not like there's an interconnected system where you can, with a super ontology that allows you to search all of that information. No. They're just working project based.
I mean, that's a very interesting approach, because the question arises, is there an interest? Is there someone who would be interested in having this kind of searchable, or are they really only interested in a particular tapestry which they're expert in, and that's it? I have no idea about that field, so I'm just asking in the blue.
I suppose that there is interest, and there is some collaboration between people working on that specific domain of tapestries. The problem that it's so varied. It's something that is always said for social science and humanities. It's so much variation in the research. I can't really say if it's more variation than, for example, in life sciences. I suppose not, but it's something they have in their mind, that there is more variation. And if there's collaboration, it's on a very small scale, like these 5 researchers working in 5 different European institutions working on tapestries. It would already be luck if they are sharing information. Usually they're really working very small groups. I think there would be an interest, but yeah.
Are you one of those scientists, or
no, I'm more in IT. I'm actually more in specialized in data interoperability.
I know that feeling. Yes.
And usually, what we do in order to make this data searchable is use for example, in religious studies, we're using schema.org as a kind of upper ontology in order to make this research object searchable. But then, of course, you're missing out the very research specific details, because you're generalizing the information. That's as far as we've gotten right now, and an extension would be extending the ontology and making it more specific for specific research topics. But then there's so many topics.
Sorry.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Also, we don't always have all of those communities represented, so it would always require their involvement.
Yeah, but this is fair enough. I mean, you can only start with some, and there must be, and this is always my point, there must be some incentives for the other to follow. If there's no incentive, why should we do that? Okay, good. But it doesn't sound promising what you are saying, if I may.
I think there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay, so where are you located? I didn't get that. So where are you working?
KU Leuven, University of Leuven in Belgium.
Okay, in Belgium, right, okay. Good, fine, yeah, good. So let me find another target. Someone volunteering. So we would have Paula, for example. No, she's not listening.
She's saying she cannot speak.
Ah, she cannot speak. Okay, good.
For the moment.
For the moment. Good. She has visitors. So there is someone which is called MD Rodriguez. So I can't see the chat.
She's saying that she agrees with Roxanne in the sense that in the case of many researchers, a first line of action is to raise awareness about the basics and try to make data fair at the metadata level.
Yeah, okay, good. So so I think this is something we all can conclude on. For me, I was more hoping that we can get some insight into what you're doing in order to get your, depend on from where you sit, your customers or your colleagues, understanding that FAIR brings benefits. That is something good. So in the case of Roxana's tapestry, that would be difficult. But I understand the project is working on that. For IceCat 3D, it's essential. And I think that will come because they are always involved in this EOS project since I know them. So I think this is going to happen for our community, like PAN. So we put a lot of effort into this. I mean, we are trying to publish deliverables which are showing everyone how important it is to have fair data, and we are organizing user meetings and we are encouraging people. But I mean, I don't know how many of you are involved or know the PAN community. We have a lot of customers which are only at our laboratories for a week or two in the year, and then they go away with their data, and it's very difficult to convince them to have fair data because we don't have a handle on them. So I'm from IT as well, and for us it's particularly difficult because we have to talk to the facility owners. That would be in our case, that would be Petra 3, synchrotron, or laser like EXFAL. And they may listen to us or may not, and therefore those projects, the EOS project we are running like Panos and Expense are extremely important because the incentive there is that we bring money and we bring other customers and so forth, and that is the only incentive. But it's still difficult. But even for them, it's difficult because they have the users coming and going.
But I have a question. Is it then not a possibility to make the policies of these facilities to have
absolutely
fair data mandatory for after embargo time?
Yeah, this is exactly what we are doing. This is absolutely what we are doing. So we have influence on the data management plan, on the data policies, and we try to get the fair data principles and policies in there. That's absolutely correct what you're saying. But it's a little bit on, I mean, we cannot force them, but they understand the advantages. And I don't even know, maybe Sophie knows, if they have this in their policy, if this is really, if we can enforce this for the scientists which are coming to EXFAL and leaving.
I think you can, but they're not really willing to do it. The facilities, some facilities, and we can understand, are not really willing to do it. But it can be binding, yes, if you put it so in your policy, because it is the rules that allow people to get beam time, so to get time to use the instruments.
Yeah.
So it's up to the facility to.
So they sign this right up in the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
But still, we have to choose. The facilities have to be convinced that it's worth putting this kind of constraints.
Yeah.
And this is where we are.
I'm honestly saying we are struggling a little bit. Good. And this is, so what I don't know, at least not in detail, and I don't think, so maybe someone of you can help me here, is FAIR considered a priority for the funders in your country? Because that was the statement from yesterday's session from Andy. Can you confirm that, or do you have different opinions? So also IceCat 3D is definitely a little bit independent of country. So you have your own organization, I think.
Yes, but we have member countries, and
yeah,
only 6. So yeah, most of them have requirements of maybe not use the term fair, but as open as possible.
Okay, so you cannot necessarily support that or that statement, and it's not as bad as they say. It might not be priority, although in the meantime it is. Yeah.
Perhaps for in Flanders it is really a priority. So there are now several working groups working on architecture, open science and research data management KPIs for delivering, for creating and delivering fair data and integrating with EOSC. So it's really a very active group at this moment, involving universities, research infrastructures, and so on. Of course, the researchers, they will only be confronted with it in 2021, still, since we are now doing all of the preparatory work. But it's a priority for the Flemish funder in any case.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, that's good. So, and Paula.
Patrick, maybe I can make a contribution.
Yes, please.
So my name is Thijs Geurts. I'm representing SKA, which is the Square Kilometer Array, and we don't exist yet. So we are going towards being an international governmental organization, and we're planning to build the largest radio telescope in the world. And I guess the biggest challenge when we talk about this subject for us is that we are a global organization.
Yep.
So we have members across 5 continents. So I was triggered when you asked us, is it a request from your funders that you put an emphasis on fair data? I would almost say on the contrary. So our funders are member states from across those 5 different continents, and in dealing with countries so diverse as China and India, South Africa, Australia, Canada, and a number of European countries as well, I feel that it's almost the opposite, and that countries are at this point very concerned that the telescope and the data it will produce, will be suitable for them, and the data and the science that comes out of it is usable for their scientists. So in that respect, it's almost the opposite movement. Maybe we will get to a phase where all these things might become more integrated, and there will be more trust, but I guess in this phase it's not really there. So,
well, that's very surprising. You said you do not exist yet, but I mean there is this SKA organization, SKAO already.
Yes.
So it seems there is an organization which is there, and they are involved in, for example, the ESCAPE project, and the ESCAPE project is supposed to make data fair. So how is that interlinked? So does ESCAPE has any influence on the decision making in SKAO?
No, you're absolutely right. So no, of course there are efforts to go towards fair data and to look at these issues, but I guess the funding question is a question that is, if I could say it, at a somewhat higher level. And if you ask me if at this highest level, the condition is put on the table from all these member states where they say, yes, I will be able to become a member of your organization, and I'm going to give you a financial contribution of so and such million euros. But I want the data to be fair.
Yeah.
that is not happening. So of course there are many efforts, especially amongst the European members, of course.
Exactly.
But on that higher level, not so much. I guess it's also a difference between the political level and, let's say, the technical level. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes absolutely sense. So I can imagine that if you spend so much money, if you put so much money into SKA, and it's very costly. So Germany refused to participate. In the meantime, I think we are sneaking in. Then of course
they're participating, I think.
Yeah, right. Then of course you want to have some advantage, but this is the same for the photon labs. So we give them a kind of a 1 to 3 year period where they can use the data by themselves, but then it has to be open. But this discussion is a little bit diverse here, because the openness can be discussed at the political level, but nevertheless the fairness is the technical one. So if you at some point decide to make data open and you did not make it fair in the past, it is kind of completely pointless. Yeah. But it's good information that if you are in such a complex organization as SKA and you have non-European countries there might be a little bit reluctance for making data open. And if you are not want to make it open, then fairness is, I don't know if it's beneficial. Maybe inside, yes, definitely. I mean, you have so many different telescopes. You have so many different kind of, it's called antennas for different frequencies, as far as I remember.
Yes,
and they all have different formats. So even for you inside SKA, you would benefit, and particularly to find your data, because you're shipping it around quite a lot.
Yes.
You're going from Australia to South Africa and then to London, I think, or yeah, at least to UK in the end.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, there's so much money involved. I guess in order to make a successful case to all these governments, you almost have to, at least this is the case in many European countries. You're almost obliged to be able to prove that this management of data or analyzing of data that is done in these science data centers will not only benefit astronomy in our case, but also many other scientific disciplines. So you have to be multidisciplinary and therefore in a way also be fair in your data. Otherwise you can you won't receive the funding. Okay,
so you are kind of a little bit brain split, because first you say in order to get the money, you have to prove that you have fair data which can be reused in different domains. But on the other hand, you have member countries, which might be a little bit reluctant in making it open then in the end. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's a dynamic dynamic process, right? I mean, and there are many aspects.
Yeah, exactly. Especially as Jan said in the beginning, it is was it Jan? We have to look a little bit in the future. Or was it Anders? I forget. Jan or Anders. And right now it's not yet. I think it was Jan. And
I think it was Jan.
Yeah, right now we are not yet at that point, but there is this hope that we can make it, that we can benefit cross-domain. Right. But that means that doesn't make any sense when I ask you, are there efforts to change the culture? I think you're just at the very beginning of this project. And, I think you're happy when having all the antenna built everywhere. I think you're not yet in the situation that you are overwhelmed by the data. As far as I can see that. I mean, I have no insight into SKA.
I'm sorry, I was muted. So you're absolutely right, Patrick. We don't exist yet, so we don't have any data coming out of the telescopes, and we don't have any users at this point. So.
Right. So that means there is, when coming to the training and so forth, when new scientists coming into SKA and SKAO, they are not required to undergo some training where they learn how to manage data, what your data management plan is, the data policies are. I think this is all still in the sky a little bit. As far as I never heard about this when talking to Rosie.
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of, and I'm not as aware as Rosie is, but not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay, good. So that was that. Is there anyone who wants to add something on to that subject? The priority of the funders and the culture.
Yeah, I think I tried to find out what is the benefit of open science or fairness, and I just found two documents. One is from the Commission naming, or I call it, it's named what is the cost of not having fair data?
Right.
And then there is another one which for the title I don't remember, but it is not for the funders. It's probably not obviously what is the benefit to have open and fair data or fair data. So I think fair is for those who are involved in the topic. Is it clear to find the data and reuse them and all the stuff? But I'm not sure if it is if the funders are aware of this.
It depends a little bit on who the funder is. Imagine it is a country. Imagine it's a country, and you have one domain, and this domain is successful and makes the data available, and then another domain is just picking it up and can use it for something else.
Yeah,
so
but
they save a lot of money. I think this is what you're referring to in the first paper of the EU.
Yeah, but then you have an example of successful application. But if you just spend money on a billion in infrastructure, funding a research project or whatever, are you then aware of the benefits of this fair data?
Nope.
Or is it more than that you say, okay, as a funder, okay, I see this proposal is sound and I fund it, and that is it for me. I'm not interested in putting additional money in this data stuff, making this findable, accessible, preserve the data and whatever.
I mean, you're right. If I need the result of a COVID investigation and I want to have a vaccine, I don't care who else wants to have this data. I will even give it away. So I wouldn't see any advantage in this. I can imagine if I'm an infrastructure, a scientific one, not an IT infrastructure like the European ESFRI, I can imagine that you benefit from being referred to more. So if you manage that your customers, your beamline scientists, or the data from them is used in more and more publications than it was actually planned to be used for, that you benefit. I mean, because in the end, the governments are counting the publications which are based on the beam time of European ESFRI or Diamond and so forth. That means if you're a little bit clever as an infrastructure, scientific infrastructure, then you see the benefit. I mean, you must be really stupid not seeing that. But when you are hunting for a particular result, then I know what you mean. Then it doesn't make sense for that. So therefore, it's important that there are regulations which force you to do that. Like we started with the data management plan. In the meantime, you do not get any EU project approved if you do not come with a data management plan. You have to describe how you collect your data, how you distribute your data, and how to make it safe in the future. And that's already a success. The entire FAIR domain, or the requirements on FAIR, that's a little bit in the blue yet. Right, but I know what you mean. Good. I think I lost the red line.
I think, Patrick, if we would need to wrap up maybe because it's supposed to end at 2:45.
Oh, it's a 2:45.
Excuse me?
Yeah?
We still have almost 20 minutes. So
it's at 3 o'clock.
Okay,
or...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, phew, Sophie.
I would have warned you.
Okay. So you are our supervisor. Do you want to be involved in the discussion?
Yes, I am already following the discussion. I'm a software engineer working in projects where we have developed several data catalogs. I'm aware of the fairness issue. I have seen that, for example, working with farmers, they resist in making their data open. They're not very interested in opening them with other farmers, for example, from other regions. So this is something that I have experienced, and it's not very easy to make them understand what they're going to gain. Another issue that I find regarding the fairness is the interoperability, where there are no standards in several communities that everyone is working on. So this is an issue usually. Otherwise, you have to go to a very generic schema, but this makes you lose the details. So for your research, as someone else already said.
Yeah, at least it's a lot of work. That's right. So listening to you, I see more difficulties than success. Is that true?
Yes, at least working with specific communities, we found more difficulties, indeed.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So then let me ask something. What would you suggest? I mean, you are all experts. You're coming from kind of really different areas like ISCAD 3D and Tapestry. So that's really different. What do you think should change in your area so that people would understand fairness? Let us now assume, not going into this discussion again, assume it makes sense. Let us assume that in the long term, fair data is the prerequisite, a necessary prerequisite for open science. Yeah? Not putting the open data aside. Do you see anything the European Commission is missing? Anything they don't bring up in order for your community to make data fair and end up in open science? Something you're always sitting in the office and say, are they stupid? Why don't they do that? Things like that. Three, two, one. So you think it's all right what they're doing?
I can add a comment here. Maybe maybe we need to provide tools that are really going to be used by the end users, the communities, and who are our stakeholders in any case. So making somehow products and not just providing some ideas or what they're going to get, that they're actually using in their work and they're making their life easier and they gain something from this, either as a researcher or as businesses. And I think we should focus on this.
Okay, so this is kind of in line with what Paula is chatting. She wants to see a reward or incentive for the cultural change. Let me understand so your name is Panayota, isn't it?
Panayota, yes.
Panayota. Okay. You were talking about tools. So what could that be? I mean, tools is it could be something really technical, or it could be a tool like a reward, as Paula is saying. So what did you have in mind when saying tools?
Personally, in my mind, I had something more technical in the sense that, for example, let's say in the farming community, you could offer a prediction about how many water consumption is, for example, a parcel is needed, or if you could predict better the weather and allow them to consume less water, things that are already in progress. But if they have this in their mobile phone and they could react very quickly and save money, this would be very useful.
Ah, okay. So real tools. So, okay,
yeah, this is an idea for example.
Yeah. I mean, as a matter of fact, something similar is happening, exactly what you're just describing. The German Weather Service is making standard APIs available for everyone to provide a service with this. So someone can sit there and can have a geographic service, a service which can tell you where you are, and then they can call out to the Deutsche Wetter Service, and can pull data in from there. This is what you have on your mobile phone. Yeah, when you see the front page, it knows not only where you are, but it even can tell you, don't go to the office yet because it's boring. No, it's raining. Sorry. So this is exactly what you're saying, and you're saying that if you provide these kind of things like standard APIs and standard search queries and so forth, that would actually more automatically get people to provide access to their data. But that requires, to be honest, that it can be used for something. So taking the tapestry, making the metadata of tapestry in Europe available on mobile phones, I wouldn't see any financial support for that. I mean, no one would, except you're an expert in tapestry, no one would want to have this, isn't it? Well, the weather thing is an example where actually everyone wants to have it. So it really depends, again, as we said initially, so what those services are. And the ones which are used by everyone, I'm not concerned about FAIR. I think FAIR is there. All the APIs, there are APIs to find out where boats are at any time, where aircrafts are. You know, you have this aircraft finder, boat finder. I'm more concerned about like the arts and the cultural heritage and all this. They really need a kind of a political push, I would say. It won't happen if you let the market go. So even if you have a wonderful, let us assume you have a wonderful app, like Pagnotta is saying, for the tapestry example, that would not pay for itself, I would say.
Well, this is with what arts and humanities always struggle with. But imagine you go into a monastery or in a museum and have a tapestry there, and you can see what happened at the same time in other regions, or for example, that you see on your phone other tapestries with the same topic or whatever, you know, and compare this and get more information. And so I think this is it's not done yet, but and it needs some vision what could happen in the future. But this is what I always already said in the beginning, that this all the stuff is really looking forward, and so it could enrich our life.
Oh, no, that's a very good point.
This example with the tapestries or whatever.
Yeah. So the point, that's a good point, because it seems it's just my fantasy is not good enough to see the future. So, but you're right. I'm going to the museum, and sometimes I even had in Italy where you can take a picture of the diagram, the what's it called, this code, and then it gives you all the options. It does not only report on the picture you're looking at, but it even gives you examples in other museums on the same picture, on similar pictures from the same artist. That's right. That's a good point.
Can I just add up to that? Usually those kind of examples that you have in museums where you get experiences like related objects, related artists and so on, they're usually specifically designed for this museum. So there is something called Europeana, which is a European digital library, which collects objects from museums, libraries, archives, and so on from all over Europe. and makes them available. And they tried several times to marketize this content to get small, medium enterprises and the creative sector to do something with this data. And actually, besides the hackathons and the prizes they could win as some experimental things, the data has never been used as such. Why? Because usually in museums, when do this creative sector do something with it? When they get a specific assignment for a museum, for the Louvre, to build an experience in this museum. So in the case of let's say the glam sector, the data is usually of no value commercially. That's the experiences so far. But yeah, you never know when someone will see the light and do something with it. But
yeah. But I mean, putting it a little bit bigger, all the science we are doing, for example, in I'm coming from high energy physics. This is of no benefit right now for anyone. So similar to art, they live from taxpayer money, and that will never be changing. And in the past, I mean, we have been going through EGI, EGI, and hundreds of years of projects, and in the end, the EU was always asking, and now make it fly, make someone paying for this next year. And we always told them, yeah, we can do that. That's no problem. And we had the sustainability plan and everything, but everyone knew it was rubbish, because no one will pay for the computing of high energy physics. Why should they do that? So, and the same is true for art. I mean, we need art. Art is part of our culture and civilization. And so in the end, we have to pay for it.
At the end, the high energy physics can point to the internet that they invented.
To what?
To the internet.
Oh, the internet. Oh, yeah, they do this all the time. I mean, you're right. In each of those documents to the EU ends up, and we invented the internet. Yeah, that was a good point, exactly. Yeah, that is a long time ago. Good. Yeah, Roxana, that's right. So there were mostly kings paying for this. Good. Let me check. So we now have 55.
Yeah. If I don't know if it helps, but I have the notes from the session. If you want in the next slide, so maybe we can agree or not on the main messages we want to.
Yeah. Okay. Now I can see them. For a while I didn't see that someone was writing, but now it's there.
Okay.
Okay. So let us go through it for now. It's a lot. Thank you, Sophia.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting so much. Okay. So this is the point with the AI. That's right. So
can you put it? I don't see it.
Oh, sorry. Of course not. Of course not.
Okay, it's not. Wait, maybe you just have to exit and come back.
Yeah, I have to exit. Now it is.
And the reminder is to stay in the room, and you will be automatically transferred after the end of our discussion.
Okay, good.
Do not leave the room, please.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good. Now you can see the points. So
yeah. Thank you.
Good. Putting the chat aside, otherwise I can't see. Okay. Good. I just noticed that I haven't my camera on. That was very rude. Damn. Yeah. Okay. Doing this later. So if individual scientists cannot in the future, AI should be able to find the cross-domain possibilities. Yeah, at least it is an option. I mean, there's the hope AI can solve that. Are most suited for scientists themselves. That was the point about having people being in two sciences. Yeah, that was the thing on the funders. Nope. oh, sorry. Here we go. Expectation from the tools available. Yeah, this is kind of an outcome, the last one, isn't it, of the session, that we identified that there are sciences, especially cultural sciences, which will never fly by themselves. You have to make tools available for them to ease the sharing of data. Good. Huh. That's a lot. Is anyone objecting one of the sentences? They're mostly coming from you, so.
Yeah, maybe I could comment on the sentence mentioning SKA, because this is a bit too strong. I think what I meant to say is that when funders, when we talk to funders, so when we talk to countries,
yeah,
they do not put the caveat on the table of data needed to be fair. So it's not so much that we experience that they really want to keep the data for themselves. So this is a bit too strong, maybe.
Okay, it's just that they do not. So they do not insist. They do not see any advantage. Okay,
that's it. Yeah.
Are you changing? Yeah. Thank you.
Perhaps for the social science and humanities, say no overarching metadata framework. Because there are, of course, there are always generic ones, and there are, or some domain-specific ones might be used. For archaeology, you have some, for example. So it's just an overarching one that's not there. And then the one that I put in the chat, we use schema.org as an upper ontology, but other SSH projects like Daria and Clarin use other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
That was the ontology. So Daria, and what was the other one?
Clarin.
Clarin. Different schemas. Is that correct? I forgot. Are they capital letters, Daria? Yes, I'm using the schema. Okay.
Okay. Do you think we could move now to the main session?
Okay.
So that I will ask the host to move us. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thanks to all of you. That was great. We really filled an hour. Thank you.
Thank you.